Hello, I'm Kerryn Powell, the Network Catalyst and the host of Conversations and Connections to Amplify and Inspire. I recently had a conversation with Skye Bennett, and you might be wondering how this conversation supports my work and my goals. So it supports my work because curiosity is a business growth tool, and I want to encourage clients to become more curious and identify valuable connections they may have overlooked. I want my clients to understand and have the confidence in communication, and that feeling awkward in networking events or when you meet new people is not something that you alone feel. It can be a common feeling. Confidence in communication is felt by many professionals who can feel awkward in networking or in a range of situations. And when we unlock opportunities, we can see beyond the obvious. We can decide what we want to contribute and how we can foster our own community. In my conversation recently with Skye, my conversation with Skye recently was so powerful. She admits she is an introverted leader, a community creator, and someone whose quiet strength has left a big impact on me. Through our conversations, excuse me, Skye introduced me to This is a solo episode, but it was inspired by a recent powerful conversation with Skye Bennett, an introverted leader, a community creator, and someone whose quiet strengths have left a big impression on me. The thing that came out of our conversation is that there is no single way to connect. Now, I knew this, but hearing someone else say it really cements my belief that too often we can make an assumption when we meet someone and that it's not the loudest voice in the room who has the most value to share. Skye reminded me that some of the most powerful connections happen in quiet spaces, like her Silent Book Club, or perhaps on a reflective walk, or even a moment of shared silence that doesn't need filling. The truth is, our personalities play a huge role in how we connect, and we need to recognise and respect the differences, that not everyone is the same as us, and create more inclusive spaces where everyone feels they belong. So I'm suggesting, what if we approached every conversation with more curiosity rather than expectation? Because when we're curious, not just about what people do, but why they do it and what lights them up and what challenges them, it changes everything. We stop seeing people by their job titles or their roles, and we start seeing their stories. And this is where the magic happens. Our world expands. We start to repurpose the lessons we learn from them, and we push ourselves out of our bubbles. We've allowed someone else's experience to shape our own perspective. Until I met Skye, I'd never heard of laneway walks, nor the program I'm Remarkable, let alone Silent Book Club. What I do know, though, is one conversation is never enough. And if we had touched on the surface of what do you do, and she'd explained to me that she was a facilitator, so much would have been lost. Real connection takes time, and it requires revisiting, following up, being interested, and genuinely sharing and leaning in. It means investing time, not for immediate gain, but because there are greater outcomes that we can find there are greater outcomes. There are outcomes and opportunities that we can discover. Skye and I originally connected through a Women Speak program, and it was later that she spoke at the YTM Insider Awards for the business community. And in fact, in August this year is running an event for I'm Remarkable. So if you're interested in that, please watch out for the 13th of August and come along online to learn about that program. Connection helps us grow and flourish, and we all can grow together. And every time I'm part of someone else's journey, whether it's mentoring, connecting, or collaborating, I learn something new about myself as well. And I see possibilities I hadn't considered, and I step into new thinking. And that's why I really love my podcast. It's also why I've been called a conduit, a matchmaker, and would you believe it, a ventriloquist, because I often help people find the words, the spaces, and the people they need to step into their next opportunity. Courage plays a role in this because we have to be brave enough to show up, courage to try something different, and courage to speak when we're unsure if anyone's even listening. And if you're someone who's ever felt awkward in a social space or unsure how to make new connections, I understand. And I want you to know that you don't have to fit into someone else's version of connection. You can create your own. And when you do, that's where confidence comes from. That's when you start to trust yourself, you build your muscle, and from that space, you can create impact on your own. Did you know that I created an art and craft market at the Brighton Hotel, that I established an art and craft market back in the 1990s. It was a safe community where people who were interested and shared a common love of art and craft would gather once a month in the beautiful gardens of the Brighton Town Hall, not only come together to sell their products, but also to contribute and belong to something bigger than themselves, the Bayside Craft Market. So as you head into your week, I invite you to reflect on these questions. What are you really interested in? How do you like to connect? Where could you be more curious instead of cautious? And could you go out and find a group or a community based around your interest? Or maybe start your own, just as Skye started the Silent Book Club Melbourne. What conversations could you be having that could open a new opportunity or a new door for you? And who could you follow up with today and establish a relationship with to explore? Welcome back to Conversations and Connections to Amplify and Inspire. My recent conversation with Skye Bennett, a quiet but powerful leader who's creating space for people to connect in ways that feel natural and meaningful, is worth listening to. And as I listened back, I realised so much of what Skye has shared aligns with my own journey and also with the message I share in my book. So I wanted to pull a few threads together, share a story from my own path, and hopefully leave you with a few things to reflect on your own life. My key learning number one is connection is not one size fits all. One of the biggest takeaways for me was the reminder that connection looks different for everyone. She spoke beautifully about her introverted nature and how traditional networking never felt quite right for her. and how a, she wanted to be a member of a book club, but couldn't find one that suited her needs. And so what did she do? She started Silent Book Club Melbourne, a space where people gather not to talk, but to simply sit and read together. It might sound small, but it's deeply meaningful, and it reminded me of how often we try to fit ourselves into boxes that just don't match our shape. In my own book, I share a story of one of the first events I attended where I felt like a complete outsider. Everyone seemed to know each other, conversation flowed easily for everyone except me, and I hovered by the food table pretending to check emails, wondering what I was doing there. But what changed things that day wasn't a business pitch or a perfect elevator intro. It was one genuine, curious question I asked someone nearby. That single moment led to a conversation, which led to another, and eventually to a lasting professional connection. And that's the thing. It's not about doing it like everyone else. It's about doing it your way. Another story Skye reminded me of was reciprocal nature of growth. In helping her amplify her work through the YTM Insight Awards last year, and simply being a champion of what she's building, I found that I've grown. I've been stretched to think differently, to listen more deeply, and to reflect on how I connect with others. And this is something I talk about often with my clients, about being a conduit. Connecting others, creating space, sharing ideas isn't just about giving, it's also about receiving, because every time I create an opportunity for someone else, something opens up for me too. That's a message I explore in the book as well, about how we don't need to have it all figured out to be of value. Sometimes our role is just to hold space, ask better questions, or simply be the bridge between one idea and the next. Skye also spoke about being an introvert and how they often think before they speak, and how draining traditional events can be that hit and how draining traditional events can be that hit home for me. Whether you're extroverted, introverted, or somewhere in between, what really builds confidence isn't volume, it's clarity and curiosity. The more curious you are about others, the less pressure you put on yourself to perform. The more clearly you understand your value, the more naturally you can share it. That's one of the foundational messages I built into my mentoring and into the tools in my book. When we can name what we bring to the table, you don't need to be the loudest to be heard. So much of what I do now through mentoring, through YTM, or through this podcast is rooted in my early discomfort with connection. I've been the one who's felt invisible in a room. I've been the one who's doubted whether I belonged. But through small steps and conversations and the courage just to stay curious, I've begun to build something that reflects who I am, and that helps people do the same. You don't need to change your personality to be successful. You need to understand it, work with it, and surround yourself with people who will meet you where you are and grow with you. So if today's episode leaves you with one thought, let it be this. Connection is not about fitting in, it's about showing up. Showing up with curiosity, showing up with courage, showing up in the way that works for you. And if you would like to explore this more, I invite you to download a short chapter of my book, which is filled with stories, reflections, and practical ways to build connection in ways that matter. And of course, I'd love to hear from you about the part of this reflection that resonated with you most. Drop me a message, leave a review, or connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you haven't listened to Skye's podcast and just jumped onto this one because it's shorter, I really recommend that you go back and listen to Skye Bennett. the quiet strength, building community and connection as an introvert. Bye for now.